Welcome everybody to the MemSQL Developer live stream. This is going to be so much fun. Where we left off last time was we had a bunch of API tests that validated that we authenticated correctly to the system and that we got the proper data out of the product catalog API. Now we left with some failing tests. Let's start there. And then let's build out an API for JSON data. Now we do have a JSON column inside of our database, inside of our SQL database. And so let's take a look at MemSQL's JSON functions that we can leverage in really interesting ways. The cool part about MemSQL's JSON functions and MemSQL's JSON column is we can use it pretty much like a document database. We still have the SQL data, we still have the relations, but we also have the NoSQL content with the SQL functions and the SQL data column. So let's dive in. First thing is we definitely need to go fix those tests. Now we do have a bunch of failed tests. If I start to look at them, what it's telling me is that we don't have an ID column, and our product code came back with what looks like an ID, not a product. So let's go back into our code. Here is our product controller, our product route. And what I said right here, let me put this on a new line so we can take a look at it. Select ID product code. So basically go select the ID field and name it the product code field and don't return the product code at all. Whoops. Typo in my SQL there. Let's do that and let's rerun the tests. Now the interesting thing is that our VS Code Jest test runner is also running the tests, so this might be an interesting collision. But we've got both the tests that will both validate we can authenticate correctly and that we can do all of our CRUD methods. Read all of the data, get, update it using put, create it using a post, and delete it. Ooh, looks like we have a new version of NPM as well. I bet we'll see that version, tag a lot. Ooh, all of our tests passed. So now we know that our API is both secure and valid. Well, presuming that we tested all the things, which as we can clearly see, we didn't. We did a quick smoke test of all the things, but we didn't actually fix all the things. So for example, down here in the delete method, update catalog, set active equals false. That's a JavaScript thing, not a SQL thing. In JavaScript, it's 0, or in SQL, it's 0, where ID equals. So we had a typo in that SQL syntax as well. Now, what this coverage path shows us is that we didn't cover line 97 at all in any of our tests. Now, code coverage isn't the same as scenario coverage. So we may have more scenarios that we didn't test as well. But this shows us that, yeah, we didn't test that piece at all. We should come back in time and create unit tests that can mock out the database, maybe, and that can execute all the things. It may make sense also to create an integration test just to validate that a soft delete works. Okay, so we've got this SQL column inside of our database. And so if I select star from catalog, we now have this JSON column here. Now this JSON column can handle any number of values. And the ask that we got is to create a quick editor inside of our product catalog that will allow us to quickly create, update, delete, and get at all of these property values. So given a row in our data grid, given a row in our product catalog, just click on a quick pencil and start typing names and values. Now we're not going to build the component today. We'll build that next week. But let's build the CRUD API for doing all of the create, modify, update, and delete inside this JSON column. I'm going to create a new route. Let's call this properties. properties because that's the name of the column here, properties. And so this will be all of the CRUD around properties. I'm going to come in here into my app, and I'm going to pull in the properties controller. Now, right now it doesn't exist yet, so this will happily blow up. Properties. And let's also rig up the URL for properties. Properties. Okay, so now that will pull in nicely. Just to make it a little bit less grumpy, I'm going to import these. We'll create a new router. And we'll export default router. Okay, now it will compile correctly, so it's a little bit less grumpy over here. We haven't implemented the methods yet, but one of the things that we did really successfully last time was we created all of those tests to go validate all of the pieces, and then we filled in the content to make those tests pass. So let's do that again. Here in our end-to-end tests, the product.spec tests are probably the closest to what we want to do. They do all of the CRUD methods with the product, and we want to do the CRUD methods with the product property. But before we do that, let's look at the auth test. Now we're going to create this as a completely authenticated API. So let's start with this. Get, put, post, delete. We want to say, not router, the other copy, the one that is copy. Now let's do it just on the product name or product code because we'll do it based on the product code because the product name, the product ID may not be available in the grid, and this kind of matches our quick use case of getting all of the content into place. Okay, so we've got get, put, post, put, delete. And I've started designing the API a smidge here. This is not product, but rather properties. Properties. Should it be singular? Should it be plural? Definitely let me know in the comments. So I'm going to get all of the properties for this particular product. I'm going to post all the properties, or I'm going to post a new property to this. I'm going to put to update a property. We could say here the property name. So let's also say prop dash GUID, and then finally delete that prop dash GUID. There we go. Now in time we may choose to just post the property name or to put the property name there. So it's not a truly RESTful API, but that may make it a little bit safer. That's interesting. So now we've got all of our authentication pieces in place. That's perfect. Those tests, of course, we're going to fail right now. But let's create a new properties.spec.ts. Now, much like the product spec.ts, let's start here and this one. There we go. Let's grab all of this content and set it in place. Now we could find and replace all the things that say product with properties. Nah. Properties. Now I'm going to say instead of a product list and picking one out, I'm going to have one product. So instead of going and getting one, let's say product equals await create product, and I'll pass in some kind of product code and the token. Now the product code, let's say const product code equals test dash GUID. Now we have some random product code. Well, this test dash matches the other tests. So let's say prop test GUID. Now we know that this product will be kind of unique in our tests. So we need to go create product. So right now we have a get products fixture. Let's create a fixture to create product. Create product. So here in fixtures, let's create a new fixture, create dash product.ts. And we have a lot in this product spec about creating a product. So let's see if we can leverage that. I'm going to start here, and there's the get all products. It should modify a product. Did we already scan past it? It should create a product. Perfect. So let's grab that. Here in our property spec, nope, not property spec, in our fixture. It should get a product by product code. We don't need that. We need this. Similar to what we did before, let's go spin up our app. Let's go create our server. I'm going to take in the export default function create product. I'm going to take in a product code. In time, we might want to take in an entire product, but for now, we just need a unique product code and the token that I will use to authenticate to the service. Similar, we want to try and close our database afterwards. So let's yank this to the end. Perfect. Oh, finally. So we don't want to do, we want to do it both on catch and on success. It should create a product. So we don't need that function anymore. We probably don't need arrange. Export default function. Ooh, yes. And I want to yield a promise of type product. I'll return the product that I just created. Export default async function. Yeah. Okay, so the product code is passed in, but we can go invent all the other things. In time, that's why we might want to pass in an entire product. Okay, so we've got super test. Let's go post to that thing, send the product that we created. Let's call this product. And now, rather than asserts, we probably don't want to assert in the middle of a fixture, but we can say if res.status not equal to 201, throw new error, got failing status when creating product code, status res.status. Cool. We do get back the ID, so let's save that ID. And we could do a similar throw if we didn't get an ID back. Return product. Okay, so now we have a fixture that will do this. Now we are spinning up another copy of the service. Export. Export. We are spinning up another copy of Supertest. And so in time, we may want to do SQL commands directly. The added benefit of doing it this way is that we are flexing the API in interesting ways. That does mean we have more places to change if that API changes, but it also means that this is kind of by accident validating all of the pieces of our API at the same time. You know, we're dog fooding our API. Get all the way out and then back in the source types product. That's kind of a long way to go, but it's totally fine. Okay, back at properties.spec. Now that we have this fixture that will create for us a product, we can now leverage that product in all the places. It should get product properties. So now we have our product code that we got from our fixture. So let's go get all of the properties from that service. And so what we should get here is not a product, but rather an object. And so right now it's of type any. We might want to say as unknown. You know, we don't know what it is, but because there aren't specific properties that we have in this JSON object. It's just a bulk array of interesting details. And we want this properties to equal product.properties. Cool. So we go get all of the properties out of our product. We get those into this properties object, and we validate that we got what we expected from creating that product at the beginning. That's perfect. It should create a product property. Now here, what we're sending in is not a product, but rather const name equals, I don't know, prop dash plus GUID, and const value equals prop dash or value dash GUID. Yeah, I probably should backtick these and go like this. That's a little bit better. I've been doing that badly in lots of places so far. So that may be a good find replace all the things thing. Okay. So now we are going to post to API/products or API/properties. We'll set our authorization header, and then what we'll send is this name and value. Now we could send an object that was just that name and value, and that would be interesting, but having them be named parameters makes them easier to pick out. So we'll just pick out the thing that is the name and the value, and away we go. We expect it to be 201. We don't need any ID coming back, but we do want to stash it for later. So product.properties name equals value. It's of type any, and string index can't be used in an any. I don't remember how I solved this. I think instead of calling it an any, I called it unknown. Let's go check the stash. API source types product. Nope. Test end-to-end routes properties. Oh, haha. Refresh properties. How did I get past that one last time? Ooh, yes, I casted it to an any. That works. Let's go do that. So here should create a product property. I'm going to say const expected equals product.properties, and I will make this an any. And because it's now an any, I can say expected name equals value. And now because I have this expected object, then what I can say is go get it. So this is properties, go get it, and res.body as unknown. And now actual, the object, should equal the expected, the object. And yes, this one is unknown and that one's any. Trying to avoid any wherever possible is kind of a good move. I'm afraid I'm going to make this mistake a bunch of times. So let's find and replace API/product with API/properties, because we know that we're going to make that change everywhere. Okay. So that test should be good, should create a product property. So we're going to stash it so that we can validate that it exists. Should modify a product property. So we already have our product. We don't need to do all the things to go get it. We also have a product code. And so now should modify the property. I'm going to go grab the name. Object.keys. Actually, how did I do this before? Yes, I would. Ooh, yes. Let me say this is an unknown, not as unknown. I don't want to force cast that, but let's go double check. It should modify a property. Ooh, yes. Okay. So I'm going to go grab that product. Oh, I think I am in the property spec. That is interesting. Okay, that's better. So expected is product.properties. Let's go get the keys. Const keys equals object.keys from that expected. So now I have an array of names. Well, I really only need one, so let me just go find, I don't know, the first one. I think in this I did, yep, I just grabbed the first one. Okay, I grabbed the first one, and now let's say the value is, I don't know, changed test product, changed prop value to GUID. And so now expected name equals value. Cool, so that's what I expect out of this. Let's move super test into here. I bet I need to do that a bunch of times. Moving super test. Okay. Expected of type any, and now I can assign it. Properties. Okay, so I'm modifying the product code, and if I was to modify it, product code, if I was to do a true REST API, I would pass in the name here. I'm lazy. I'm gonna send in name and value. Because I have this unique, actually, what did I do in my auth spec? Did I pass in the name there? I did not. I was lazy there too. Okay. So I expect it to be 200. Let me go grab the content for this. Expect it to be 200. Expect body to be truthy. And this is actual is unknown. And expect actual to equal expected. Cool. So we've got the modify test down. It should delete a product. Okay. Except for it's not a product. It's a product property. I like that trick of grabbing the first, should create a product property, should modify a property. Let's go grab the first property here again. And we only need the name and the product code to be able to do this. But let's go create an expected as well. Just so that we can, oh, actually, no, we don't need to do that. Product.properties. And here we can say delete product.properties name. Oh, nope. It's going to make me do it. Okay. So expected, const expected is an any that equals product.properties. Cool. So now I'm going to delete expected.name. In time, we may want to make product.properties an any instead of an object, because that's a little bit more descriptive. Okay, so now product code goes in, and also name. Now the interesting thing is we may want to URL encode these if their values aren't set correctly. Let's also create a business rule that says both the product code and the property name must be consistent things. Now the name may have spaces, and that could do interesting things. So yeah, let's say encode URI encode URI component, just to be safe. And we probably want to go back through all of the tests and encode URI the product code as well. But one of the things that we did in a really elegant way here in our product, where is it? Here in our product, is we gave it this product code regex. It must be lowercase and uppercase letters 0 to 9 and the dash character, and that is all. We probably want to make this a little, let's centralize this actually. Here in product, here's our product code regex. And let's also create a similar regex for properties. Product property regex. And so this can be lowercase, uppercase, 0 to 9, dash, and let's also give it a space. But now we know that it's not angle brackets. We know that it's not other characters that could make our URLs do bad things. So we removed this from the product spot. So let's come back in here and say we want to import both of those. And in all the places where we're using product code regex, let's say product code regex the new way. Product code regex. Perfect. So we have our specs now. We have our authorization spec that will validate that all of the routes are authenticated, and that we get a, that we get a 401 even on the get, because we don't want to get all properties out of a product unauthenticated. We want them to use the actual product, the regular product method that is unauthenticated. So even the get will be authenticated in this case. We also have this property spec where we created deep equality. Oh, it ran the test and it didn't succeed. That's why. We also have delete tests. We have a modify test. We have a create test. And we have a get test. Perfect. Or get all test, rather. So we've got all of our tests. Now let's go build out the code that will make this happen. The product route is the most similar, so let's start with that again. Now we will need to modify it quite a bit, but we won't need to modify it quite as much as we did last time when we cloned from product to products. And we'll dig into all of the pieces. So I'm going to start out getting a product code and return get product properties by product code. Since all of them are by product code, we can probably leave that off. We want to post, which will create product property. We want to put, which will update product property. We want to delete, and this one will take both a product code and a name. And that will delete product property. Now in this case, we weren't authenticated to do the get, but we do want to authenticate with the get this time. So let's add that in place. Now we must authenticate into all the routes. There is a way to authenticate outside in the app as we rig things up, but having some authentication there and some authentication here would probably be worse. So let's leave it here. We also want the product property regex because we'll use that here. Okay, should get product properties. We're getting the product code, and if it's not a valid product code, we'll 404. But let's also 404 if it's not a valid product code regex.test product code. So if it's not a valid product code, but it exists, then we'll dump out as well. Okay, now we need to go select all of the content out of this property. So basically what we want to do is grab properties from catalog where product code is product code. Perfect. We expect to have one row, and so we don't need to set the row active, but we do need to return product row dot properties. Or said differently, not that. Let's say const product equals rows 0 if product equal if not product, return res.status 404.end. Is that strictly necessary? Probably not, because we did that here, but just in case. And then we'll return product.properties. Now it's getting a little bit mad at us here because, actually, let's delete this because it would be very hard to test, because our test would hit this spot and never hit this. So we would never get code coverage on that part. It's mad because this rows is a row data packet, not a product. So we can't just cast it here. We have to say as product. Bummer, but that's okay. Okay, so we've got our get method in place. Let's create product property. We want to create a scanning. Yes, scrolling all the things is interesting. We want to get product property there. And so here we're going to do this same mechanism of grabbing the product code rather than the product ID, but we will also grab const name and value equals request.body. So if we don't have a product code or we don't have a product code regex, 404. If we don't have a name or we don't have a value, is null a valid value? I would argue if you're going to set it to null, you should delete it. So I think that's okay. Or not product property regex.test name. If it's not a valid name, then I'm going to send a 400 saying you didn't call my method correctly. Now there is a magic question. Should I do the name and value validation first, or should I do the product code validation first? You know, should I yield a 404 or a 400 if you pass me the wrong stuff and the product doesn't exist? Yeah, I think this is probably fine. Okay, now how do I insert content into the JSON? There's a really elegant YouTube video here that talks about the new features of MemSQL's JSON functionality. And so we can pop open the code for that. Open recent. I've done a few things. There we go. So here's that companion code that goes with this. So selecting JSON properties, here's how we would select them out as actual SQL properties, which is really interesting. If I say %% $code, then that's a string. %% value, that's a number. Properties : array. Now this is an array object, and that's really cool. But here's the magic: JSON set string. So we want to update customer set properties equals JSON set string properties, and then the name and the value that we want to set it in place, where ID equals 1. Perfect. Let's go grab this. And so rather than insert into catalog, we're updating a row. The product already exists. Update catalog set properties equals JSON set string properties and the name and the value, where product code equals ? Cool. Update catalog, set properties equals to JSON set string, the original properties that we had, and setting this name and this value into place. So here we're going to pass in name, value, and product code. Cool. Now this is a create product property, but that's how I do it, is I set this thing inside the place, inside that object. I don't need to get the ID out of it because, I know that I added this. Technically I updated, not added. So is 201 the correct response, or should I send a 200? I'm going to err on the side of restfulness and return a 201 on success. Cool. Update product by ID. So let's go look at this method. And let's go look at those JSON functions again. Here's the JSON functions. And so insert will use JSON set string. Update will also use JSON set string. So JSON set string does both pieces. That's perfect. Back here in properties.ts, create product property. This will be update product property. And here's where if I wanted to pull the name out of the query string, or out of the URL, I definitely could, but I'm going to be lazy here and just grab the name and the value out of the body. Yeah, not perfectly restful. Yeah, if the code review fails there, that's awesome. But now I'm going to return 200 instead of 201 because I didn't update. Well, I do want to do this though. If result dot affected rows, or actually rather changed rows, if result dot changed rows not equal 1, let's say if changed rows is less than 1, then return status, return res status 404. Now in this case, if I didn't match a product, then I got a 404. There wasn't a product updated. And I can do this here when I create it as well. If I went to go create an attribute on a product that didn't exist, well, I also want to get a 404. Well, you notice that there's a lot of duplication between this method and this method. Do we want to pull those out and put them in a different spot? We could. If we compromised a smidge more and said, let's return 200 on both sides, then we could have one method that was just create and update, rather than two different methods, one for create and one for update. I think we're approaching the spot where refactoring to make it dry would be a good move, but I think it's probably still okay in this case. Ultimately, definitely fight with me, code review me in the comments, and let's take a look at it. Delete product by ID. Well, here it's delete product property, and I'm going to do similar things here. Not that. I'm going to do similar things as I did here, but in this case, I'm not grabbing the name out of the body. I'm grabbing the name out of params.name. Let's do that trick again. And so I might want to refactor this instead to say const product code name equals request.params. And that's completely valid as well, except for this one casts it into a blank string if I don't have anything. And I kind of like that. So I'll just leave them separate for now. But if I don't have a name, I don't have a value in this case, so I can't do that. But if I don't have a product code, then I'll 404. If I don't have a name, then I'll 400. The more that I think about this, this probably ought to be a 400 as well, but okay. Now, there's no concept of force anymore. We're just doing a delete, and we'll send a 200 at the end. Well, kind of. If we didn't grab a row, then we'll send a 404. So how do we delete JSON out of the data? Let's go back into the script. Insert did JSON set string, update did JSON set string, delete does JSON delete key. Cool, JSON delete key. So we'll update catalog, set properties equals JSON delete key, properties, the one that we already had, and the name, where product code equals that. So now we'll pass in name and we'll pass in product code, and we won't do this at all. We do need to grab the results though. So let's go grab the results. Perfect. That was really cool. Let's kick off our unit test and see how that went. File, save all. Oh, it's already saved. Perfect. npm run test. So what's really cool here is the mechanism for doing CRUD inside of our SQL database. We have these cool functions that make it really, really easy. When we're selecting, we just select that as an object, and the MySQL driver here inside Node will automatically cast it to an object, and everything will work great. When we're doing a create, we just call JSON set string, and away we go. When we do an update, we also say JSON set string. And that JSON set string will update that key to that value. And then JSON delete key will remove it. You can grab this code from the video, and there's also a blog post that talks about all of the JSON CRUD functions. This one is really cool. I just Googled for memsql JSON, and I got straight there. Now, the other assumption that we did here was we said set string. We're assuming that all of our values are strings. Now, in this case, they are. Somebody typed them into a input box and we didn't cast it. Well, we haven't built that control yet. But we may, in time, want to say, well, what type of property was it? And if so, we may want to call other JSON set values, JSON set number, JSON set binary, not binary, JSON set bit, Boolean. And so, we may need to switch case on what function we call here. But for now, because all of our values are strings, then this worked really well. We got that CRUD API into place. We have 4 failing tests. Let's take a look at it. So we went to go get it, and we expected the result to be a 404, and we got a 401. We got a 401 because in this API, right here, in this API at the very top, we chose to authenticate all of the pieces, including the get method. In our test, we just cloned the test, and bad things happened. In our cloned test, when we do all of our gets, we're not passing in the token. Because we're not authenticating to the service, yeah, of course we're getting a 401. So let's authenticate to the service. Let's authenticate to the service here when we're getting it back out. Let's authenticate to the service here. And let's authenticate to the service here. Now what we're doing is we're doing a whole lot of get it back out methods. I think it's probably time for us to centralize this get it back out code and do that in one place rather than doing it a bunch of times. We needed to update 4 spots. The bummer part, though, is what the response is different in every time. So basically the only thing that's duplicated is our API, our URL, and passing in the bearer token. So because it's functionally different in spite of the fact that it's semantically similar, I find the test to be a little bit more legible if we just do it in place rather than calling off to a helper method that just obscures that. Cool. npm run test. Go, 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 go. Ooh, 23 pass tests. Ooh. Okay, so we got 1 failed test. Did we get 1? No, we got 3 failed tests. Where did we fail? Has changed prop value, and what we got was prop blah 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 value. I think we're not getting the... Oh, we have an extra property that we didn't expect. Here we got a 404, suggesting that we're not passing in the correct product code. What method was that? Should create a product property, line 67. That one may be a head scratcher. Yes. Passing in the correct API is important. /properties/product code. Yeah, trying to post into a URL that doesn't exist does bad things. And then where was our other fail? It looks like should modify a product is not updating the thing correctly. Nope, that looks like we're setting the expected to the value. And, oh, I know why, because the other one that should have created it didn't create it, and we're mutating the same object in our test. Because we're mutating the same object in our test, then we did get a failure across 2 tests when one of the tests failed. It may make sense for us in time not to say before all to go grab the product, but rather before each create a new product. That would have isolated the tests and gotten us to a single failure in this case. And that's interesting, but that will make our tests slower in this case because we are spinning up a new copy of Supertest, we're spinning up a new copy of our API, we're actually doing a post, we're making a database connection, we're kind of doing a lot of work. So taking a shortcut may actually work out pretty well. Ooh, we still have two failed tests. I'm going to cheat. Let's go look at the answers. Yeah, what the value is should be less important here, but product code, product, res.body, yes, not doing it as unknown is probably a good idea. Let's say unknown there. Prop and value, those are okay. Expected.product code, yeah, we can just use regular product code, that's okay. Change prop value, that should be okay. Go, oh, I grabbed the last property value instead of the first just so that I could mutate different things. That's cool. Let's move Supertest into place. We did an encode URI component for that name, which shouldn't have mattered, but that might be what's biting us. To equal 404. Yes, we totally failed to validate what this was returning. Let's go back and look at that. So here in the properties spec, what we get back is a 200. Let's go get all of the things, and what we expect is for it to equal expected. So let's say expect actual to equal expected. Now we did get a 200 here, but we would also get a 200 here. So const actual is an unknown equals to request or response.body. And so that's what we needed to do. We need to actually go get the product values and validate that they are as expected. Now let's go double check that. npm run test. This is the part where they go green. Go green! Go green! Go, 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 go! 23 passed. We're doing good. We're doing good. Did we succeed? Yes! All of our tests pass. So we know now that our API is good. We have an API that will do all of the JSON methods with our object. Let's actually do this. We have an API now that will do all of the CRUD methods with our JSON object. We're able to see that we can do pretty much NoSQL data store actions with our MemSQL database, and that was really cool. We now have an example of a relational API, relational table API, with our product API. We also have a NoSQL document store API with our properties API. Now we haven't rigged up the properties API to a component. We also haven't rigged up our product API to the form. We kind of left that dangling last time too. So next time, let's rig up the product form so that we can do CRUD on our products. And then we'll also dig into creating a component to be able to edit these properties, both in the grid and in the CRUD form. Remember, we just left that as a to-do. Let's edit the properties. I bet we can probably use the same component in both places. Let's see. Join us next week for the MemSQL Developer livestream. Thanks.